Welcome in, everyone. I'm going to wait a few moments just to let a few more students trickle in before we begin. And then we also have one of our other advisors, Jenny. She's here with us, but she's in the attendees area. So if any of you have questions in the chat at any point during the webinar today, feel free to ask, and she can answer any questions you have there in case I don't get to them or in case I don't see them. So, okay, so for those of you who are with us, let's just do a quick little warm up before I introduce the panelists. If you could share which city you're from and which health profession you are aiming for into the chat box. Let's just kind of see who we have with us. Get my chat box in the right spot. And just to reiterate, we just would love to see what city you're from and which health profession you're aiming for. San Francisco Medical School. Great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else? Also from San Francisco. Dentistry. Nice. Maybe I'll wait for one more and then we'll get going. Brentwood Med School. Great. And I think we just had another student join. So what I asked everyone to do, if you're able to, is if you could put the city that you're from and the health profession that you're aiming for into the chat, so we can kind of get to know you and see where you're from. That would be great. So feel free to take a moment and type that. And then I will share a few slides and then we'll go into chatting with the panelists. Let's see, I know we got one or two other brave students here. City and health profession. If not, that is okay. I will go ahead and start my slides and then we will, oh, there we go. Sacramento, PA, great, love it. Got a nice little variety here, med school, dentistry, and PA. Okay, so for those of you who have yet to meet me, my name is Brielle. I'm the director of the UC Davis Health Professions Post-Bac Program here on the undergraduate campus, not to be confused with the UC Davis School of Medicine Post-Bac Program, which is also a wonderful program, just two different missions. Our program brings in students from all health professions, so medicine, dentistry, PA, nursing, PT, whereas the other post-bac program is focused only on medicine, and they are making sure that they recruit students from backgrounds underrepresented in medicine, and their cohort is typically a lot smaller, maybe around 15. Ours is a bit larger, somewhere around 50 to 60, depending on the year. So I'm not going to take up too much time talking about our program as much as I would in a typical webinar, but I do want to give you a couple of quick touch points. So I'm going to share my screen before we get started. All right, make sure I got all the right boxes open. Can everyone see that? Yeah, good. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is the UC Davis Health Professions Post-Bac Program. If you have any questions for us after this webinar, please feel free to email us at postbac@ucdavis.edu. We have several people who check that email daily, so you should get a pretty quick response. And if you'd like to visit our website to learn more, you can find it here. And I will put that into the chat box a little bit later. And also if Jenny is able to do that at some point, I know that she's really good at putting links into the chat as well. So we serve all health professions and we are an academic enhancing program only. So if you've yet to complete your prerequisites for any of those health professions that I saw you throw out there, right? Medical school, PA school, dental school, you really want to make sure you complete your prerequisites beforehand. Otherwise, you may want to consider a career changer post-bac program. But regardless, there's still a way to get to where you're trying to be, right? You just have to figure out which path makes the most sense for you based on where you're currently at. And we always start in January, which makes our program a little different than other programs you may be more familiar with. And I'll explain why in the next slide. But it's just really good to note that we only have one starting point per year. We only have one cycle. Another feature of our program is year-long test preparation. So many of you may be familiar with the more condensed versions of test prep. It could be 3 to 4 months, especially if you're pre-med. You may be familiar with the Kaplan or Princeton Review courses. And while those work for some students, other students somewhat benefit from having a slower chew throughout the year to kind of progressively get to that point where they feel comfortable taking the exam. So if you see yourself as someone that maybe wants a bit more time and a little bit less pressure in terms of getting that test preparation done, this may be a good program for you. But again, we want you to be where you think is actually best for you versus just any program, right? So I really encourage all of you to still look at the other schools where you can do these types of, you can have access to these types of resources to make sure that you're making the right decision. During the summertime, we have a track system for hands-on learning. So our students are able to explore either the clinical track where you become EMT certified with the UC Davis Fire Department. You'd be able to join a research lab in the research track, or you'd be able to join several different locations that we now have for the health equity track, where you can kind of help some of these communities with their health equity initiatives and kind of grow as an individual and figure out how you can contribute to your surrounding community. And the last two things I want to just quickly highlight is we do have a committee letter service and wraparound advising. So even though you're with us for that entire academic year, January through December, that following year, that following January through December, you're actually in the cycle. We are with you the whole time because it doesn't actually make sense for us to drop you off when you need us most, right? So getting through the cycle is probably one of the biggest hurdles after getting through the academics. And so we want you to know that you'll have access to us all the way through that process. And finally, Timely MD. This is our mental health support. This is not something we've had available in previous years, but we're super excited that we have it now. So students have access to, I want to say it's up to 18 appointments throughout the entire course of your experience here in the Post-Bacc program. So that is something that we really wanted to make sure we secured because we understand how stressful it is trying to aim for a health profession. And we want you all to know that we do care about how you're doing overall, not just, you know, how competitive are you and those things. We actually want you to be okay. That's extremely important. So that is a feature that we have. I'll run quickly through this, but this is really just to show you all our curriculum design with us starting here in winter, taking 3 science courses. If things go well, we can bump up to 4 science courses here in the spring. Students are actually doing 2 to 3 summer courses because the summer classes are a little bit more, a little bit less dense, I would say, than some of the other quarters. And then finally, you can do 3 or 4 in the fall. We will work with you and look at your academic transcript and you know, just to make sure that each quarter, the amount of units you're taking is actually conducive for you and you feel comfortable with it. And we always, you know, spend time making sure you like your schedule and all of those things. And we have some support seminars along the way to make sure that you're keeping up with everything you need to be keeping up with. Here's my photo debut, just kidding. So your advisors in the program are myself, Doug, he's our test prep specialist, and Jenny, our newest advisor, who's been great to have on the team. We believe in a very high touch model. You should be speaking with us very frequently throughout the program. You're not going to have to wonder where we are, or, you know, a month has gone by, you can't figure out where your advisors are. We're on Slack all day. We do get busy, but we always still make time to make sure, you know, we make sure we're staying in contact with you as much as we can, in addition to those weekly seminars and our appointment system, which you can book an appointment every week if you like. Some students meet a few times a quarter. Some students meet a lot more frequently than that. Just kind of depends on the student. But we do want to make sure that we conduct a full academic assessment so you know the target numbers that you need ideally to get to where you want to go, and that we can guide you through the application preparation process. Whew, I made it to my last slide. Okay. The application is now open and it closes July 15th, but we do have round deadlines. So if you submit before the end of April or before the end of May, because that's round 1 and then round 2, typically I would say in terms of how intense the process gets, right? That's probably the best time to submit. And the closer you submit to July, that's when the competition gets a little bit higher. So I encourage you all to apply early. Send your transcripts to Post-Baccast now, reach out to your letter writers now. And I would suspect that things would be relatively smooth for you as you transition through this application process. But again, if not, I will post our email address into the chat box. Feel free to reach out directly to us for anything. We also do prospective student appointments through Calendly. So Jenny, if you get a second, it's okay if you're not able to. If you get a second, if you can post the link to our prospective student appointments, you can chat with us before you even apply, and we can help walk you through a few things as well. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see all the nice faces of my panelists. All right, so I'm super excited to do a different type of webinar today and introduce you all to some students who've been in our program. And I'm going to have each of them introduce themselves and just kind of share a little bit about their journey into the Post-Bac program and where they're at now, or what stage in their journey that they're at right now. Okay, so I'm going to call on Francisco first, and then we'll go Rachel, Monica, then Kayla.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Very nice to meet you. I'm Francisco. So I found myself in the Post-Bac starting in 2021. So I applied in 2020. My undergraduate grades weren't the strongest. So I started looking at different Post-Bac programs, and I found this one. I found UC Davis. I will say they definitely helped me a lot during my time there. One being with the classes you take, you know, they're science courses. They can be very dense. But it was really nice to have a Slack channel or just people on standby by email to kind of tell them my concerns regarding, for example, teachers or tests coming up or things like that. And also just kind of working around my schedule to things that would make me look more competitive for when the application cycle came around. I will definitely say one thing that helped me a lot was the MCAT prep. So a lot of courses that you can take, that you can buy, for example, through Pistol Review or Kaplan, they do the 3-month standard kind of course. I do think it's amazing that you start off in January just kind of chewing off little bites. They just kind of put it in the back of your head and it stays cooking, you know, kind of the whole 12 months that you're there. And not only just that, but the person in charge of testing, which his name is Doug, he also acts as a tutor. And one of those things that's good is you can just set up a meeting with him and tell him, you know, I'm really not understanding physics, or I'm really not understanding this aspect of chemistry. And he will sit down with you. He'll give you review in certain things that you need. He's very good at teaching you test taking skills. One thing that I also liked was the different extracurriculars they offer here. So like she mentioned, EMT and research, I chose EMT. I had clinical experience prior, but I think it's nice to add a certification to your resume. So that's what the path that I chose. You can't really go wrong with any of them. I think they're all great. I had friends in different pathways and they all really enjoyed it and think that they stood out on their application. Where I'm at right now, I'm currently working, and I'm already done with the application process. So I have been accepted, and I also have a couple places there I'm waitlisted at. So right now I'm just kind of choosing where to go. But I will say that something I loved even more was how they helped me with the application process, because I didn't realize how challenging it could be and how many questions you have, you know, in terms of like clarification. They check your essays, and they definitely, you know, tell you like kind of like before you submit, you kind of sit down and see what schools are a good fit for you. I think that was really helpful for me because you know, each school that you apply to can be another more money they have to spend. So rather than like send money to places that didn't need to, that probably weren't looking for someone like me anyway. Brielle and Doug, you know, they sat down with me and said like, these are schools that you'd be a really good applicant for, and that helped me definitely for sure in my application time. So that's basically where I'm at right now. I'm working as an infectious disease investigator, and you know, kind of choosing where I'm going to go to school. Haven't completely decided yet, but I have some idea. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Francisco. Who did I say was next? Was it Rachel? Yeah. Okay. Go for it, Rachel.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rachel. I'm currently in Southern California right now. I was in the same class as Monica and Francisco. Yeah, I applied 2020, I guess. It's been so many years now that it's really flown by. And we were all in the same cohort together. And I was on the same track as Francisco as well, doing the EMT track. And I pretty much want to echo everything that Francisco said. I joined the program for the same reasons. Like the bit by bit MCAT prep was really helpful for me because I had a couple not so successful attempts at taking the MCAT. And so Doug is incredible, and they set you up for success as long as you're trying to stick to the program. And I think just the entire program, I always felt like I had a ton of support. Like, some quarters were a little bit more hectic than others, and I just knew I could always rely on Brielle and Doug if I needed anything. Jenny was brought on afterwards, but I've met with her a handful of times, and I think she's also very wonderful for her interview prep. And then once, we finished the program and I moved back down to Southern California and I started working, and I've been working with Brielle for the entire application process for the MD track. And so I've got a couple acceptances and a wait list. So now we're just trying to figure out where to go. And I think, again, like Francisco said, probably my biggest reason for joining this program was the fact that once you finish, they are with you through the end, right? Like I've been out of the program for over a year now, and I still text Brielle, I still message her, and we meet regularly to kind of figure out how should I approach certain situations and just being strategic and the whole application process. So everything was really awesome, and I couldn't recommend this program more.
Thanks, Rachel. Appreciate that. Monica, were you next? Clearly, I can't.
I think so.
The lineup. Okay, go for it.
Okay, everybody. My name is Monica, and like Francisco and Rachel said, I am in their cohort. So with our cohort, I know I forgot to mention that our cohort was when we were still transitioning into like in class. So we were mainly doing online class, and we didn't have the mental health department or aspect in our cohort. So I was one of probably the few people that had weekly meetings with Brielle. So I took advantage of that. And she was my therapist for more than half the program. But yeah, so the same reasoning as Rachel and Francisco for joining the program. I love that they're always there with you. I am pre-dental, or was pre-dental. So the DAT prep, it was a year long for us as well. And I do like the fact that you kind of visit it like almost every week. So even if you weren't prepared to like study like full on early on in the program, you're still visiting it. So that way, when it's time for you to study, you know exactly what you're doing. You don't feel lost. You don't feel confused. You don't feel behind. But yeah, the program is great. I was in the research track, and that was great. I've never done research before, so I was kind of scared going to the research track, but my professor was great. I even stayed on for a couple more months after it ended. And I tried to hold on as long as I could with like staying in for research, but after the program ended, I had to go back to real life. So I had to say goodbye to everybody. And where I am currently, I am going to UCSF. I've accepted my acceptance to UCSF. I'll be starting there in September, so I'm kind of excited. But yeah, Brielle, Doug, everybody was great. They stayed with me, even if I have like random small, what I consider stupid questions, and I would slack Brielle or Doug about it. They would just kind of calm my nerves and just give me reassurance.
All right, thanks, Monica. Kayla, go for it.
Hello, my name is Kayla. I am originally from Sacramento, so very close to Davis. I am actually a part of the cohort 2, so I just finished in December, and right now I'm just working on my applications and getting ready to apply for this upcoming cycle for medical school. Along with everyone else, like similar boat, I graduated in 2019, and I was looking to do a post-bac to like increase my GPA, and I tried to do the do-it-yourself post-bac, and I wasn't as successful with getting into those like city college classes and doing that, as well as studying for the MCAT at the same time. So the UC Davis post-bac really stood out to me because it had everything I really needed to improve my application. And during the year, it was just so our cohort, we only had the first month online. So I think we were the first cohort to like actually like be in person and stuff. And that was just really awesome. I think it really helped to build a community in our program. Like everyone was really close, and we really got to interact and stuff. So I really enjoyed that, as well as doing MCAT prep with Doug and Jenny and everybody. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the experience. Right now, as I said, I'm just applying. I am working as a scribe. And during the summer track, I actually did research too. And I am still doing research with the professor I'm doing with. And we're actually working on publishing a piece right now. So they're still very much involved, even after you are done with the program.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that, everyone, all of those wonderful stories. So I actually have one or two more questions for the panelists, but then I want to open it up to the students who are here with us today. I want you all to either raise your hand and ask a question directly, or you can feel free to type into the chat. But like I said, I'll give maybe one or two questions to them first, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so I have a question for all of you. How did you stay motivated throughout your entire post-bac journey, especially when it got tough?
So first of all, Brielle, you helped a lot with that. Your talk, seriously. I think you know, I haven't met Jenny. I'm sure she's wonderful from what I've heard. She just wasn't there when I was there. But for Brielle and Doug, I have been able to talk to them extensively, and I think like they really help you with that. So I talked to Brielle really stressed, and she would constantly just tell me, she's like, you know, like almost at the finish line or almost at the next step, because you don't really reach the finish line until you know, get accepted. But she would tell you, you're almost done with this part, and kind of like that little nudge saying like, you know, you're almost done with this part. Those pep talks really help. And same with Doug, like helping me get, you know, slowly your MCAT score up. I think that definitely helps you stay motivated. I will say they help you pick your classes too. It's classes that'll make you stand out. And they also know the professors really well. So I had some wonderful professors during my time at Davis. And I think those professors are really wonderful and helped keep you excited with the material genuinely, because they're so passionate about what they're teaching. And also just in the way that they want to see you learn. So I think definitely the administration played a huge role. And also, you know, Brielle helping me pick up my classes so I can meet these amazing professors who really helped me out a lot in their own right with the application. But I think, yeah, seeing your progress and the fact that that weekly check-in helps, one, for the pep talk, and two, because they're able to see your progress. Like, you know, they keep, you know, like they know you pretty well. They know how you're doing in your classes. They know how you're doing in your MCATs practice exams. So kind of keeping that track record on you and seeing your own progress, and then telling you, you know, hey, you're doing great. Or, you know, if you have that off practice exams, and having Doug just motivate you, telling you know, like, this kind of happens, you know, we're going to try this, having someone there to look on the bright side, big motivator, you know. And I think also when you know, when you get to the end and you're working on your application, that them helping you just show you like the real stats, because I'm sure people hear about how, like, you know, medical school is almost, getting into medical school is almost impossible. You might hear that in, you know, every forum and Reddit, but they make you see that it's actually not. I can definitely attest to that. I used to think it was, but it's not. And they help you really get in that mindset. You know, one, by just talking to you, and two, by showing you the actual stats that they, you know, have access to through all the resources and things. And I think that was incredibly motivating.
Great, thanks for sharing that. Anyone else want to chime into that question?
Sure. I
Yeah,
think
go for it, Rachel.
for me, like, yeah, getting into even the post-bac was like a long journey, right? And, you know, for so long, like I graduated undergrad in 2016. So it's been a little bit, you know, it's taken me a little bit longer than most other people. But the little victories along the way really help. And like Francisco was saying, you see your progress. And sometimes, you know, for MCAT in particular, it's like, oh, my score went down this time. Like, what the heck? And you're kind of frustrated, but it's just looking at everything big picture wise and saying like, hey, like I got an A on that midterm, or hey, I was really able to like build this strong relationship with a professor who wrote me a letter of recommendation. And it's seeing your success. And at the end, yes, there's going to be bad days, but yes, there's also good days. And just trying to keep that mentality that, yes, I can do this. And it can be emotionally draining and it's financially draining, but along the way, Brielle and Doug and all the professors in the program really helped keep me up. And I think it's also, you get you get out what you put in. So coming to a post-bac, it's like you're committing time to going into medicine, right? It's like you already tried, you failed, and you're like, okay, I need to assess and do like spend another 30-40 grand before going into school. So it's a big commitment. And I think, you know, if you're willing to take that step, it's worth the investment. And I think just, yeah, like I said, keep a good mindset, because it's hard, but having good classmates, good professors, and Brielle and Doug really helped, and Jenny. But that's all I got.
Great, thanks, Rachel. And before I have either Monica or Kayla, if you want to hop in, I'm just going to answer this quick question. Katie, I see your question about the website. So those C minuses, that actually refers to prerequisite courses. So if you have more than one C minus in a prerequisite course coming in, we want you to try to retake those before coming into our program, because we can only give you one retake of one retake of a general chemistry class, or one retake of an OChem, or one retake of a physics. But typically, if it's just one or two classes, it's not a huge deal. I'd still encourage you to apply. We can probably work something out. It's more about if you're missing like a whole series or something of that nature. So feel free to email us directly if more questions like that pop up. But hopefully that was a quick answer for you. Monica or Kayla, you want to chime in? It's okay if you didn't want to.
I'll chime in.
Cool.
I would say for me, the biggest thing was just the community. Like, all of us here are like science majors, and I don't know what how your guys' undergrads were, but I think a common theme is that science majors, it's really competitive, and like oftentimes you might feel alone, and like everyone else is doing better than you. And being in a program where everyone is in the same boat as you is just really encouraging, because everyone wants to see everyone win and be successful. So I think that just really motivated me. Like, it wasn't like people were bragging about their A's and stuff like that. Like, people actually want to help other people, and we all, you know, want to be successful and see each other succeed. So I think along with that, and like obviously, yeah, the feedback you get from Brielle and Doug and like Jenny, it's just amazing and so encouraging. Like, I think everyone would go to Brielle and just say like negative things, and Brielle and Doug were just so amazing and like positive. And, you know, never really like helped you feed into that self-doubt. Like, obviously, if you get into this program, that means they believe in you, and that means that like you do have a future in medicine. So I think those are the things that really motivated me.
Thanks, Kayla. Go ahead, Monica, sorry.
No, you're good. So for me, so same thing, of course, Brielle and Doug were my biggest motivators doing the program. My cohort, even though we were online, but our Slack channel was always, we were always talking to each other, sending motivational messages, you know, encouragement. So that helped a lot. Outside the program, I would say that for me personally, I have a cousin who is currently going to med school. So in a way, even though I'm dental, I kind of saw a future, my future of like how she's studying, and she would be studying with me. She would be motivating me as well. So that's how I kept motivating outside of the program. But mainly I relied on my cohort. I relied on my weekly therapy session with Brielle. And that really played a big part in like keeping me motivated. Yeah.
Great. So I hope all of you that have joined us today can see that we try to make sure that you get to know us on a personal level. I'm not just here to advise you. I really care about, you know, how you're doing and what things are going on in your life outside of post-bac, right? Because that's the biggest thing we talk about a lot. You've got to be more than a post-bac student, right? When you get to medical school or dental school or vet school, you've got to be more than a vet student, right? Like, who are you outside of this journey that you're on, or this career that you're aiming for? And that self-development is just as important, if not more important, than the career you're aiming for. So my hope is that all of you, whether you end up in this program or not, that you learn who you are and what you really enjoy and what things really speak to your heart. Because if you don't know those things and you're kind of just doing this because it's a lucrative career, or, you know, everyone thinks that it's so cool to get to the doctoral level, you'll lose yourself. So our goal is to make sure that you continue to know who you are throughout the process. And I would say, you know, as employees for this institution, we genuinely have a passion for this work. It's not just a job. We love it. So thank you all for sharing that. I promise I didn't pay them to say any of these things. It's probably coming across that way. I'm just kidding. Okay, so it's right at 5:30. I have a couple more questions I can ask the panelists, but I wanted to create some space for you all, for the students that are with us today. if you have any questions for the panelists, go ahead and type them in the chat. Got one for the research opportunities. If I am pre-med, will I be paired with physicians that are doing research? Great question. This is a D1 research institution, so we have a bunch of PIs that are here. Many of them are physicians, many of them are not. So it really just depends on which options we have available for the summer. I will let everyone know, hey, here are our 10 PIs that are doing research. Here are the subjects that their research labs are in, and you can choose from those. We did have a few students who were working with physicians who got to do some shadowing and like clinical research, but that was mostly because the subject of that physician's lab was really interesting to that student. And so I do take an inventory of where your interests lie, and I will try to reach out to as many PIs as I can, but it'll kind of depend on what's going on that summer, just based on availability and things like that. But I will try to make sure that you're happy is the goal. Great question. Any other questions for the panelists? And feel free to be as candid as you need to. It's a safe space. So feel free to ask whatever questions you may have. Ooh, well, I'll let the panelists tackle that one. How long does the application take? If you remember, I know it was a little while ago for some of you.
I can try to answer that. I don't remember too much about the application. I don't think it was hard or anything. Actually, my story was that I found out about this Post-Bacc program like a month before the application was due. So it was like less than a month that I had to submit, write everything. So it's pretty much doable. But I really don't remember much besides having to write an essay. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think there was like 3 essays, and what helped was that the essays were posted online, so you can get a head start.
They
You
still
don't
are.
need to like, yeah, thanks, great. You don't have to just like go on the Post-Baccalaureate website and see. But I think the biggest thing, and like even for like med school and like whatever, all the apps, get your letters of rec, because it's their professors that are going to dilly-dally because they don't see it as a priority, right? Like they have so many other things going on. You are like the last thing that they want to do, because writing a letter of rec can be kind of annoying sometimes. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing I would do. But aside from that, it's not long. If you are in good communication with your letter writers, it should be pretty straightforward. Yeah.
I have a question directed at me, Brio, but I can also like really quickly touch on the
Yeah,
application.
go for it.
Application. I feel like the application wasn't too bad. You know, you kind of input your classes. I think if I remember, there's like 3 short essays, like they're not like entire pages. They, you know, basically, you know, kind of getting to know why you want to go into this career and why you think you want to, you know, that you go into this Post-Bacc in particular, and kind of gets to know your journey. You know, why do you want to Post-Bacc? So in my opinion, I think it's in terms as far as applications though, I just recently got done with so many. It's not that bad in comparison to, you know, the professional school applications. It's like, you know, like when you apply to dental or PA or all that, it's going to be a lot bigger. But for this one, I think it's pretty fair amount. And then there's a question for me. It says, Francisco, I see you went to SFSU. Why did you pick UCD Post-Bacc over SFSU Post-Bacc? And that's a great question.
Great question.
That's a very good question. So I am familiar with SFSU Post-Bacc as well. And it's not, you know, to rag them at all, but ultimately I chose UCD because they offered more opportunities. So SFSU does offer, you know, some chances to do a little bit of shadowing at UCSF. I know, but UC Davis being, you know, an amazing institution in itself for medicine already, they can easily connect you to those labs, easily connect you to the clinical rotations. And I also chose there because of basically the classes I would be taking. So SFSU, you can the Post-Bacc, they already have their whole list, and they'll tell you what times you know, it's basically already scheduled for you. You know exactly what is your first semester is going to look like and what it'll look like at the end. I don't know if that's changed, but at least when I was applying back then, that's what it looked like for me. For UC Davis, you get a little bit more leeway. Well, you also get help, but leeway in making your own schedule. Every class you take is relevant. So it's not just like a free for all where I can just take classes that I want. It's classes that will make me more competitive for medical school. So they're, you know, scientific based. And in terms of that, UC Davis has amazing choices for classes. Like I took virology, I've taken immunology, I've taken some really incredible classes. I could go on and, you know, she'll probably show you the list as you get closer to applying. I think the chances to take those classes was incredible. I think they honed in those classes you take, hone in my skills for the MCAT too, because some of that stuff shows up. I think it's relevant for the clinical career that I want. And I also picked UC Davis because, you know, if you want to think about an objective standpoint, some of the professors that are there, they attend a lot of conferences and they attend a lot of clinical presentations with various medical schools. Like they're very involved with various aspects of either clinical or scientific research. So they are very well known in the scientific community. So they kind of also throw in their guidance in terms of like helping you, you know, when you're in your applying application setting for school, and also just in terms of like what some schools want to hear, like they kind of know. So I think that was one aspect that was really enticing to me. And also UC Davis as a whole, just it's a great place to foster medical learning when that goes for whatever you guys are into. You know, I know there's a lot of people here who said so many different career paths for themselves. I think that UC Davis is incredible for that. And when it came down to it, that's why I picked UC Davis. The opportunities offered here are really great. And they really help you make sure that you get those opportunities. That's another thing, right? Like I think there's some post-bacs that say like the opportunities are there, but then you may not get them. You may get there and then they'll be like, oh, you know, but you know, with Brielle and Doug, they really make sure that you get the best opportunities possible during your time there. And if for some reason, like something were to work out, like for example, like a research lab, you didn't get the one you wanted, then they help you find one that's really close to it or something else that will make you happy during your time here, and also at the same time make you competitive when you're applying, which is really important.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing all that, Francisco. And again, great question. I wanted to tackle the question that came right before that from Katie. Does the DAT prep or help still apply to the individual quarter program? So unfortunately, Katie, all of the test prep is only a part of the full program. If you do a single quarter with us, you will still get access to us as advisors. You'll still have your reserved spots and courses and all of that stuff. It just won't come with application prep or the seminars. So hopefully that's clear. Okay, what other questions do we have? Do most pre? Oh, I love this question. I will give a little bit of my answer, but then I'll pass it to the students. I want to just talk about the psychology of applying, right? I don't think anyone actually feels ready. It doesn't matter how much you've done, doesn't matter how high your GPA can be, a 3.9. There's just something about the anxiety of applying to a health professional program. I think that most people will never actually tell you that they were ready. That's why I really believe you need a team of people around you who believe in you, who can tell you like, it's time to put your foot on the gas pedal, it's time to go, right? Because you may never actually feel it. So do I think most feel ready? No. But are a lot of them ready? Yes, right? And for those of them that are not ready, you will know that way in advance. It's not going to be a month before the application and we say, we're actually not thinking this is going to work. Like we would have told you along the way, like, okay, so we're midway through the year. These grades aren't quite looking the way that we would like. I'm going to want you to start thinking about taking some additional classes after the program because I may need you to hit certain numbers. Or if you come into the program and let's say you didn't have a lot of clinical experience and you didn't want to do the EMT program, well, we've still got to get you into some clinical experiences before you apply, because at that point, you know, even if your metrics are great, if you don't have the experience, you're simply not going to be competitive. So as kind as we are, we're still very direct about being realistic about the process. And we know what holes look like. So we will call out your holes early, but it will still be up to you to execute, right? We can't do it for you, but we can guide you in the right way. And that sometimes means you finish the whole program. You may realize you need a little bit more clinical experience, but maybe you're tired, maybe you're burnt out, maybe that year was just a lot for you and you need to wait a year and regroup and apply the following cycle. Very healthy. You are in your own lane, you're running your own marathon. It can be easy to compare yourself to your other cohort mates and, well, they're doing this and they're doing that, but what feels right for you? Because if you really think about careers, you're going to be a dentist or a vet or a physician for probably 30 years plus. So why not take an extra year if you need it to really plant yourself strong, fill in those holes that you may have and go from there. So I'm not saying everyone finishing this program has to take a gap year, but I just want to be realistic that, you know, if things don't go according to plan throughout the year, we need to make certain pivots, because you just applying for the heck of it is going to be you wasting money and us not supporting you in the way that we should. We're going to call out if something is off. Okay. Again, great question. Any other ones popping up? Oh, well, I actually did my little soapbox chat. Would any of the panelists like to address feeling ready for the process, or if they had to do
So,
anything extra?
I'm not pre-med, but just to go off of what Brielle said, they are pretty honest and direct with you. So with my situation, I ended up unfortunately getting COVID probably like a month or two in May. I know in May, my DAT test was in June. So I was kind of sick basically for the month of May. And I remember meeting with Brielle and Doug and just telling them like, I don't think I'm ready. I haven't been studying for a month. I think I should push back my DATs. And I remember them both telling me like, nope, you're ready. You're taking this. You have 3 weeks to prepare. You got this. And then I was feeling the pressure and I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to study. I need like 12 hours of like study days. But no, it was pretty doable. And they were right. I was ready to take it. It was just my nerves. And a lot of it has to do with your nerves and like your like how you think about the program. So I felt ready. Well, I never felt ready. I felt kind of ready to apply after the program. But then after you go to like conferences, like we went to the pre-health conference, I went to a few of like the dental schools, like, you know, how they put on like, come shadow us for a day. And I meet with all these other applicants and I realized like most applicants are applying blindly. So being in this program, I was given like a really huge, I would say, advantage in terms of like knowing what questions to ask, what to look for, how to present myself. So I did feel ready, but I am pre-dental, so I'll give pre-med a chance to answer.
So yeah, I was pre-med, and I will say that I felt as ready as I possibly could, because Brielle is very right in that you don't feel ready, right? Like whenever you do something for the first time, you're kind of antsy. So I'd be lying if I said like, oh, I'm ready to go. But I think there's confidence in that. Brielle basically told me, like, at least my GPA and my MCAT was not a problem. You can move forward, right? And then they kind of evaluate you with like, hey, like where you're at right now, you're good to apply. And I think that's actually something that's very good, because some people, I think like Monica just mentioned, some people do apply blindly. Like they won't have like, or even a prerequisite, they'll still send that application. They might not have the proper MCAT score for some schools, still will apply. I think meeting with Brielle just for my application and just kind of sitting with her and saying like, this is where you stand as an applicant right now. These are the places I think that you'd be really competitive for, and these places I think maybe not so much. I think that made me feel ready. And of course, the application season, so many things can happen. Like nothing is a guarantee, but just kind of having someone there to tell you like, like numbers wise, like, doing the research wise, you're good to go. That's really great. So I felt as ready as I could. And just because you had people there telling me, like, this is the moment to apply. And I think that's great. And also, if I hadn't been, I really would appreciate the honesty rather than me, spending all this money on applications, just someone tell me like, hey, maybe take one more class or retake that MCAT or do a little bit of work on the side before you apply. I think that's great too.
And I think just to kind of build onto that though, like Brielle said, like to get into this post-bac, you need to have met a lot of prereqs along the way, at least with regard to courses. And like everyone else has said, you always don't really feel ready because you're like bearing all of who you are in an essay and you're like, they're not going to like me. But again, that's why you have Brielle and Doug and Jenny to read your essays and tell you, here's what's good, here's what's bad, here's some things that you should, reposition. But ultimately, I think it is student dependent on whether you're actually ready or not. And like everyone has said, Brielle and Doug are very honest and they'll say, maybe you should like take this extra class, you didn't do so well, or maybe let's get a little bit more time in the lab for you. But yeah, honestly, like it's how you position yourself too. So I trust Brielle, trust Doug, trust the process. It's very emotional and ups and downs, but you can do it. Just make sure you're putting the work in the entire way through, because it's a lot of money. So don't waste the opportunity, because this is a great program.
Kayla, how do you feel now that do you feel ready?
Yes, and I don't know if this just is my inherent overconfidence to my dismay. And I haven't applied yet, but I actually am very, very confident about this application cycle. I feel like this is after the program, like, I feel like I've gained so much confidence, and this is the most confident I've been about like my grades, my GPA, and my MCAT and what they can do than I've ever been. And again, I haven't even applied yet, so I don't know. But I think just like realizing once you get in the program, all the things that Brielle and Doug and Ginny know about applying is kind of like a cheat code. Like you have to know, like, like just putting in perspective that the majority of people who are applying to medical school don't know all these like tips and tricks at all. So that I think that automatically just puts people at a disadvantage. And so even just like just having this contact in this community and the people around you will just give you a leg up and make you feel a lot better. And then as Brielle said, like after the program, everyone kind of just does, you have that 6 months before applying to do what you need to do. So I actually am in some online classes that I'm taking, just a few. And then I'm also like scribing and continuing my research. So like there's always like there's time after you finish the program to also continue to build your application if that's something of concern. And like everyone else said, like Brielle and Doug will be honest with you and tell you exactly what else you need to do if you need to do anything after the program, because I feel like it's a pretty comprehensive program that like if you're really on it, you can get a lot like done. You can really increase your GPA, you can really do good on the MCAT and do all the activities that you need to do.
Great. Thanks for that addition, Kayla. I'm going to tackle, oh wait, were you going to say something, Monica? Okay, sorry. I might have been got distracted. Okay, so Lisette said, I began working in public health and I want to pursue a career in medicine. I would like to complete an MPH before medical school. Would you recommend a post-bac before or after? That's a great question. It really depends on you, but I want to be really clear about something. An MPH is a wonderful degree to pursue, but be mindful that if you want to pursue an MPH, do that because you're passionate about public health, not because you think that it's going to make you necessarily more competitive for medical school, because typically the coursework that you get in an MPH, while it's great, it's not at the scientific rigor that you know, it might be if you were to do like a MS in biomedical sciences or something like that. And even that, right, nowadays, in general, master's degrees are viewed in it as a separate GPA. So unless you're directly impacting your undergraduate GPA, which is really the GPA these health professional programs are looking for, usually you're doing that out of passion, or you're doing that because you really have, it's just something you wanted to, you know, tackle before applying. So if that's you and you know that you love public health, absolutely do your MPH. It actually doesn't matter whether you do it before or after, as long as if you need a post-bac, as long as you do the post-bac before you actually apply and increase that GPA in the way that it may need to be increased, you'd be fine. Francisco, your hand's up.
Oh yeah, no, I thought that was awesome. And I also want to say, like, if you decide to go MD, a lot of them, when you get accepted, they offer you apply to MD MPH. So they'll be like, hey, do you want to apply to All-Star? So you do a dual degree. Also, you know, if you're interested, if you really want that MPH, you can do it while you're in medical school. There's a lot of schools that have talked to me and they're like, oh, you know, we have like a lot of schools now are doing dual degrees and you can choose to get an MPH while you're doing it. And typically, you know, that, I mean, there's a lot of options, there's so many, but MPH, a lot of people that want to go into public health do it, like, especially for me, because I kind of liked infectious diseases right now. And I might consider that. A lot of people don't start it till after their second year of medical school. They really want to feel it out. So, you know, that's also an option. If you choose not to take your MPH, there will be a chance in your professional school. Like most schools are, you know.
Great. Yeah, really, really good point. It's even easier to get into an MPH program as a medical student because once you're in, they kind of trust that you'll be fine versus trying to apply as an undergrad coming out. It's a little bit more competitive. So great. Let me tackle these next two, and then I'll open it back up to the panelists for the third one. The question is, if you're coming out of undergrad or out of university with no built credit, how possible is it to get your full program covered with loans? Everyone's situation is slightly different. I would encourage you to reach out to us at that postbac at ucdavis.edu address. We can get you connected with our student services team who help students kind of figure out which private loans make the most sense. And I know I didn't cover this earlier, but I normally do it in a larger webinar. Our program is not FAFSA eligible. So you have to finance this program through either private loans, family support for those of you that may have access to that, or just, you know, other avenues. And we're pretty similar to the UC Berkeley extension in terms of not being FAFSA eligible, because our program is hosted out of CPE, which is the UC Davis Continuing and Professional Education Department. So yes, it is an expensive program. I do think there's a lot of value here, but you have to make sure this is for you, right? If you're going to spend $30,000 on a post-bac, number one, you need to make sure you need a post-bac program. Half of the students who are applying to post-bac programs probably don't actually need them. If your GPA is a 3.5, you don't need a post-bac program. Okay, there are other things you should be focusing on, rounding out your application in other ways. This program is really for students whose GPAs are kind of sub 3.0, could even be a little bit near 3.1 or 3.2, and maybe have like a downward dip at the end of your undergraduate career. But truthfully, you really need a 3.0 cumulative GPA and a 3.0 science GPA. That's when schools actually take you seriously. Now, I've had plenty of students still get in that were under that 3.0 threshold after completing a post-bac, but because they did super well in that post-bac, did really well on their standardized testing, they were still successful. But as a rule of thumb, that 3.0 is kind of like that good, steady baseline. So again, make sure this program is something that you need. If you're not sure what that means for you, reach out to us. Come schedule an appointment, come chat. We can let you know if it makes sense, or if we feel like we can just maybe guide you elsewhere and have you save some money. The next question is, when do students usually apply for schools? For dental, for example, we apply in June. So do they apply a few months into the program or after it ended? So I really like this question because I wanted to highlight again that our program is off cycle, typically, for what you would usually see. So normally in a post-bac program, you would start in fall, if for us we're on the quarter system. So you would go fall quarter, winter quarter, spring quarter. And at the end of that, you're actually applying. So you're doing all your application prep, you're doing all your test prep, and everything has come to a head in June, which can be very stressful. And some students like that because they're only in the program, quote unquote, right, for a year, and then they're applying. With us, you're going January through December. So you're actually in our program and you're missing a cycle, right? You're not applying 6 months into being with us. You're going to wait. You're going to keep going all the way through your academics, finish in December. When that following January is here, you have like a cushion of 6 months to really wrap your mind around what you're about to do, because what you're about to do is a lot, emotionally, physically, financially, right? So our program is a little bit more of a pace. You're not kind of like a bullet train going through. So that was a very long way to say you will still apply in June, roughly speaking, for all of these health professions, but it will be the following June after. Okay. Then I'll post this back to the panelists. We've got about 6 minutes left, so this will probably be our last question. You're welcome, Katie. What's some advice you would give in terms of getting into this post-bac program? What would make you stand out and be a more successful applicant?
I would say be authentic in your essays. They really want to know why you're here. Obviously, you know, if you have some errors in your, you know, in your grades there, this is why you're here, right? You want to fix it. So, you know, be transparent about why that happened. In terms of being in the post-bac, you know, just really work hard and learn how to study, because I feel you can, I know all you can grasp the material, and, you know, no matter how hard it may seem, it's possible. It's just you have to learn how to study. And I think what's great is, you know, Doug, especially, he teaches you how to do that. And then, you know, in regards to that, just get in this point, just be authentic. And for that interview, just really, you know, prepare for just, you know, just questions about yourself, because they want to get to know you. So just really think about your story, think about why you want to go into the career you want to go into. So really start thinking about like what drives you for that. And, you know, whatever is on your application that you're, you know, perhaps the reason that you want to apply to a post-bac, just think about the reasoning why that happened. And, you know, because that's something that will come up, and just kind of talk about it. Again, you're here to fix it. So don't be ashamed. Just, you know, kind of be transparent with that.
To build off of what he said, yes, be authentic, but then also make sure you are ready. So like Riel said, there's a lot of people that do post-bac program because that's just the next step, or they heard that's just the next step, so they just apply. But make sure that you are mentally ready. And this is what you got to do. If you want to take a gap year to like travel, to like live life, then do that. But trying to take the post-bac program and thinking that, you know, that you're ready, but then in the middle of the post-bac program and you're already invested financially, emotionally, mentally, and you find out that you're not ready, that's going to be hard. So that's my advice.
I would agree with everyone else. And then also like take the time to evaluate your past like academic mistakes like in college and like really resonate with what you can do better and what you plan to do like going into the post-bac and how you're going to change your study habits and your effort and you know, reaching out for help and stuff like that. So just like changing your mindset and being open and like everyone else said, like be authentic and really show the people who are interviewing you like why you deserve to be in the post-bac.
Yeah, agree with everyone else pretty much. And I think something that Francisco said, it's like, know the fact, like you made a mistake, like your way of getting into med school or whatever professional program that you tried getting into didn't work, whether it was, you know, trying to do your own self-paced post-bac or, you know, eventually just not doing so well in undergrad, like it's okay. And like, just know that you're ready to try and confront that and learn from those mistakes and be willing to ask for help and take advice. Because I think that's the best way to grow. And yeah, but you can do it. There are tons of people that had kids in this program. There's people that were younger, there's older, and everyone in between. So if this is meaningful to you and you want to pursue a career in some form of health profession, it is possible to do this program. So just ask for help and come in with a strong mentality.
And I want to add to what Rachel was saying too. You know, and I think Francisco touched on it too, like the mistakes that you all made prior, we're not judging you for those mistakes. That's what this program is for, right? We understand, you know, if you're an undergrad and you're working because you have to provide for your family, or you just kind of overextended yourself. You were so excited about all these opportunities. You joined 17 clubs and you just didn't get to do any of your schoolwork, right? I mean, we've all been there. We know what that's like to just overcommit, or there's a million different reasons why your grades may have not been where they should have been or where you would have liked them to be. But I am really big on self-awareness. If you can point out to me or to our team what you believe the issues were and what, even if you don't have necessarily the best idea of how you want to proceed forward, just showing the effort that I really want to make a change and here are ways that I believe I can do that, pointing those things out and not avoiding them. Especially in interviews. We are going to ask you some pretty interesting questions in the interview. And our goal is to figure out, are you someone that's transparent? Can you work with us? Are you going to accept feedback well, right? If you come into the program and you don't agree with anything we say, and it's just kind of like, well, no, I heard on Reddit that I should do this, or no, I heard on Student Doctor Network that this doesn't make, you know, those kinds of things, you're basically paying a bunch of money to just do what you could do without us. Right. So we're really looking at students who are open to feedback. Again, we're not mean, but we're direct, and you don't have to accept all of the, you know, the feedback that we give you. But I think just self-awareness, again, knowing who you are and being transparent about some faults you may have had. And that'll give us a really good idea if we can help you or not, because some students we're just not a good fit for, and that's just natural. And I'll answer this last one. I know we're right at 6. I want to be respectful of time. The question is, will you talk about the post-bac in your personal statements or essays for medical school? You absolutely can. So you can use the post-bac program as a most meaningful experience if you want to. You can use it as a regular experience, especially when you hit secondary season. Sometimes they may ask questions about challenges. Maybe you want to highlight something that happened to you during this program and how it helped you grow. So nothing is really off topic or off limits, I would say, unless it's things that you did in high school. We try to avoid bringing up high school experiences if we can, but there's always a way to, if there's something that you really want to discuss in your application, there is a way to do it. We have to look at tone and we have to look at if it's appropriate for the question. But if you really want it in there, there are certain things, right, that we want to make sure you feel good about, and we want you to present your most authentic self in your application. So that's why we really need to get to know you throughout the year, because once we get to the writing portion of putting together your personal statement, you all may have a hard time opening up, and you may feel like your statement has to be relatively surface. But I may say, hey, 3 months ago, you told me about this thing, and I feel like that would be really important to be in your personal statement. And you may say, well, they don't want to know about that. No, they do. They need to know about some of these things because they need to get to know you. right? So we don't know what that thing is, but I say all that to say, you want to work with a team who's really invested in who you are as an individual, so that as you're writing, you come across as a human and not just a pre-med or a pre-dent or a pre-vet, right? You have to have an identity. And if you don't know yourself, you want to use something like a post-bac year to figure that out, because you're going to need to know who you are when you're interviewing. All right, 601. I think we did pretty well. So I want to thank all of the panelists who came, Francisco, Rachel, Monica, Kayla. Thanks so much for spending an hour with us. Thank you to all the students who joined us today. You asked some really good questions, so that was awesome. I will put our email in the chat one more time for those of you who maybe didn't see it before. And I know that link to our prospective student appointments is up here somewhere. I found it. So I think that should work there. Oh wait, no, I copied the wrong thing. Sorry, I'm gonna have to, Jenny, if you're still here, is she here? Oh, she had to head out. Okay, doesn't matter. If you guys send us an email to postbac@ucdavis.edu, we'll get you the link for the actual Calendly Zoom account, so that way you can chat with one of us one-on-one. But I hope you all have a great evening. Thanks so much for coming, and hope to get connected with some of you soon. Bye, everyone.